Media Day is in the books, and the guys seem really confident about Joe Mazzulla, but confused about everything else. And I will tell you what I think the most important thing is going to be for this team to succeed after hearing them talk at Media Day. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here in the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day, and I'm here for you every day with a free, fresh podcast, so subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the show on YouTube. I'm John Karalis, former professional basketball player and credentialed beat writer covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal, now heading into my 16th season covering the Celtics. I've also written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. I do thank you for making this show part of your daily routine. And today is practice day. Tuesday is practice day. The 22-23 season is officially here. Media Day Monday is the entire topic of this podcast. And obviously, the entire kind of focus is the reaction to the Ime Udoka stuff. Because it's how do they move forward? How do they just shift to Joe Mazzulla? What are the players thinking? I mean, these are all questions that need to be kind of answered and addressed, and most of them were on Media Day. So the way, like later on, we'll talk about Mazzulla, him as a coach in the third segment. The second segment, just a lot of praise for Joe Mazzulla. I'll get into some of that, and then we'll just start with the players' reaction and what Ime, his dismissal or his suspension for now. I think eventually will be dismissed somehow. Either he's going to get fired or he'll resign. Either way, I think he's done with the organization. So the team and how they're handling this news is supremely important, because you don't like to see coaching upheaval. That's not, when we talk about teams, the lesser teams, the teams that have always struggled, teams like Sacramento, who are constantly missing the playoffs, and it's new coach after new coach after new coach. And, guys who are in their fifth year are sitting there with their third or fourth head coach. And it's just, you can't operate that way. And so you have an unfortunate situation here with what was supposed to be just one coaching change. Brad Stevens goes upstairs. Ime Udoka comes on in. Guys like Peyton Pritchard have to switch and learn somebody new. The young guys have to learn somebody new. And now all of a sudden, Pritchard's on his third coach in 3 seasons. And Grant Williams is on his third coach in 4 seasons. And all of a sudden, these guys, there's suddenly no continuity with the team. And so you want to obviously find the right guy, keep the right guy. And I think installing Mazzulla, I think the Celtics are hoping that he becomes that right guy, because you don't want to go into next season with yet another new head coach. And so you heard from the team about a lot of confusion. Marcus Smart said it's been hell for us. And that's difficult to hear as far as the on-court product, because that comfort and confidence is part of being a good basketball team. So this notion of these guys being kept kind of in the dark about this, and this sudden explosion of information. What do you mean? Our coaches what now? That is something an unfortunate side effect of all of this. Jayson Tatum said, I found out about this on Twitter, just like you guys. I think if you take everything at face value, everybody's saying that they didn't know anything. They were told kind of basically what was happening. Ime is out. He violated these rules, and here's the suspension. They probably know a little bit more than we do, but they don't know a lot, and they don't know the details. They don't know everything. They could probably find out. I'm sure they can ask around if they'd like and find some inside information about what exactly happened. They can dig if they'd like, but they haven't been at the Garden. They haven't been around. They still are have only recently been filtering in to Boston, so they have been blindsided by a lot of this. The overall feeling from media day, from the players' perspective, was confusion. They're just shocked. They had no information. They had everybody was still grasping for how to process this. Jaylen a few times said, was asked the question. He said, I just don't have all the information. I don't know whether it's the same. It really is the same stuff that I've been saying. And it's because none of us know. I don't know if the Celtics acted appropriately when they disciplined Ime Udoka, because I don't know what he did. So I can't tell you if he was disciplined appropriately because I have no idea what the infraction was. You hear drips and drabs along the way, but without every bit of detail, without seeing that report from the attorney, I can't tell you 100% with 100% certainty and clarity that yes, they did the exact right thing. I can trust that they did that. I can sit here and say, well, they hired this firm and they followed these steps and this was the result of it. So I can trust that if this was the process, knowing the process-oriented people in charge, that I can sit there and say, all right, I feel good that these guys would reach the appropriate conclusion based on the history and all of that. But if you asked me the same question people asked Jaylen, I'd give you the same answer Jaylen did. I don't know. I don't know what he did. I don't know how bad it was. And so I don't know how to react to a lot of these things directly. I can't give you answers directly. And that's unfortunate for those guys. I think there's that level of confusion and uncertainty is something that they're not used to. And I got to give credit to Gary Washburn of the Globe, because he was asking some of the questions that I had been thinking about, where this is a guy in Udoka who set a culture of discipline and accountability, and then all of a sudden he's out there doing stuff that gets him basically kicked off the team. And he asked Marcus Smart directly about it. I had forgotten that this had happened, but it was a great question because Marcus got suspended. He got dinged for being late to a practice, and you hold the players accountable to something like that, and yet you're out there doing this. There had to be some level of, well, wait a second, do the rules not apply to you? I thought we were all on the same page here. But the guys all felt. I feel like they all just said, we're confused. We don't know what to make of it, but we're here and we're moving forward. So there wasn't any, except for Smart, who said, look, I still love Ime, and this is an unfortunate situation. I think what he's saying is, like, as a person that he got to know, the coach that he got to know, he still has, they develop a relationship, and he still has fondness for that guy, the head coach guy. That doesn't mean he condones the actions, but I think everybody is still very, very much still processing what happened. So that impacts the stuff on the floor, because if there's confusion, that's a distraction, it continues to seep into just everyday life. And each day that goes by, it'll be dulled a little bit more, and eventually they'll get to a place where everything's just about basketball. But for now, there is still that level of too many eyes, too many people that are unfamiliar, too much uncertainty. You know, I've been to a few of these media days, and this was unlike any of them because there's a whole row of cameras in the back. I counted a dozen TV cameras in the back of the room, where normally we'd have a lot of space where I could go in the back and write and do my, you know, I'd have space to operate. I didn't have any space to operate in this. It was so jam-packed with media and television and all of that. So guys don't like that. Basketball teams don't like that. They tolerate us. They tolerate some of the beat writers like me that are around. You learn to trust the guys that are around because you know what they're about. You know what they're writing about. You know they're doing a job. And when you walk in, you see all the cameras and all this attention. It just becomes a bit of an intrusion. So I'm sure when we get to the practice floor, by the time you're listening to this, I might be on the floor at the RBAC Center talking to these guys again. And there will very likely be a number of cameras that aren't normally there. Within a month, the media horde will be pared down to about half of what it's going to be on Tuesday, probably. But that just all serves as distraction, and distractions they're not good. You don't want to have too many things that distract from the task at hand. That task at hand will be executed by Joe Mazzulla. And if there's one encouraging thing from a Celtics fan perspective is everybody was very effusive in their praise of Joe Mazzulla, including Malcolm Brogdon, who had one of the more incredible, I think, quotes in support of Mazzulla. We'll talk about that in just a minute. First, let's talk about betonline.net, your number one source for all of your betting needs, including football, college and pro, very much in the thick of some very intense battles on the football field, and people love betting on intense battles. So you can find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game that you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information. You've got live betting, up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. That includes the NBA, MLB, MMA, boxing, golf. It's all there at the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events. That's betonline.net. You can head on over to the website. You can use your mobile device if you'd like. BetOnline is where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your second listen? Josh Lloyd hosts the absolute number one daily fantasy basketball show on the planet, in the universe. I'm willing to bet it's more popular, even if there are aliens out there with fantasy basketball. Locked On Fantasy is bigger than that. It's a monster show. Josh Lloyd does a great job. And you're just getting ready to do your drafts. So you've got to pay attention to what Josh tells you. He is the man, and you will definitely gain, I think, an advantage in your league. So Joe Mazzulla is taking over, and he was the first person to speak. And I'll get more into the specifics of what his approach seems to be. But I think the first thing that I want to get into is the just feeling from the players, because you have to have their trust. You have to have, in the NBA especially, it's not like you can say, Joe's your coach, pay attention to him. And I think players at the NBA level will be like, okay, but he's got to earn my trust as much as I've got to earn his. And so I feel like the praise that you heard was, I think, genuine and overwhelmingly positive. Malcolm Brogdon, and this is the one where really, you got Brogdon who came in and he says, I had a number of options. I picked Boston because I wanted to win. So he chose to be traded to Boston. And the part of the selling point was, I'm sure, Ime Udoka. And the Celtics had just made their run. And he even said it when he was at Indiana. He went through a phase of 3 coaches in 3 seasons, and it's jarring to do that. And you're playing a lot of different styles, and it's constantly, okay, what am I supposed to do now? I just got used to doing this other thing. Now we're doing something different. Okay. And so I'm sure that Brogdon's selling point was, here's a team that's really good. You got Tatum, Brown, Smart, all of these guys. You got Udoka sitting there as the head coach. Everything is stable. They look as stable and ready to win consistently as any team out there. And now all of this upheaval. And so Brogdon is now facing, okay, now I got to play for this other guy. But he says of Mazzulla, he's an incredibly impressive guy. And he mentioned, first of all, that when he goes into lift in the morning, Joe Mazzulla is in there already ahead of him lifting weights. So the coach is in there. Coach is 34. Yeah, he still wants to stay in shape. He probably wants to go out there and get some run himself. He's in there lifting before the players are. But then Brogdon continues. He's incredibly disciplined. The first thing I picked up on Joe is he's in the gym lifting, so on and so on. Sorry, I already mentioned that. Players respect and love him. His ability to put together scouts, which is scouting reports, I heard against Miami and against a few teams last year in the playoffs, were brilliant. And he's gotten that reputation around the league as well, as I've talked to people. I think he's a guy that's ready for this opportunity and is going to thrive in it. That's great to hear because, Brogdon can be as politically kind of correct as he wants to be as the new guy. So he could say something simple, generic as, hey, yes, I came here and I thought that Ime was going to be the coach, but here's an opportunity for this guy, and I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. I'm optimistic about what he brings to the table, and so on and so forth. But this level of praise is pretty good. And again, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. But to mention the specific things like the scouts against teams like Miami and other teams in the playoffs where they're brilliant, if he's got the level of detail to that, to come up with a scouting report game plan that helps the team win, that's a guy that can be involved, more effective at the next level. That level of attention to detail is going to be important for Mazzulla as he moves forward. But you hear, Marcus Smart, Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, kind of saying the continuity part is important. The fact that they went with a guy who's been here for a few years, who knows these guys, who knows these players, and Tatum and Brown and Smart and people who have been here for a while you're already blindsided. They're already just sitting there going, what the hell is going on here? And to have Mazzulla as a guy who's in all the meetings, obviously in the film sessions, if he's doing scouts, he's talking to guys, he's coaching on the floor. Head coaches turn the practice over to assistants so they can go over their scouting reports. You're playing Miami. Mazzulla is over there coaching everybody. Miami's going to do this. They're going to do that. Be prepared for this. And putting these guys in the right place. That is all part of earning a reputation with these guys. And so that level of familiarity is important. Everybody you heard from said they're excited and they're very positive. So it feels like one hurdle there is sort of cleared. that Mazzulla can come in and have the attention of the players. They will come in and they'll, for lack of a better term, be focused on him and understand, hey, I respect this guy. I respect his work ethic. I respect everything that he's put into this. So let's go. And there's a matter of pride involved. I think we heard from these guys also that they are looking forward to making that run again. They know what it takes. They know how hard it is, and they know what it takes to get back to that level. So they will continue to do what they do. This is going to be a very collaborative effort, more so than usual. I think the NBA head coach player dynamic is always more collaborative than you might think. You see coaches on every other level kind of being, we're in charge, you're the player, you listen to everything I say. At the NBA level, it's so much more collaborative. And I think at this point for this team, it has to be even more so. It has to be as direct a partnership, a 50-50 thing, if they're going to get through this, because all Mazzulla can do now is try to kind of execute a plan that's been mostly put in place. Guys have gone through their off seasons with a plan. Practices have been scheduled and mapped out with a bit of a plan. And this is an 11th hour type of thing. It happened over the weekend. There was a press conference on Friday about the suspension, and they practice on Tuesday. You can't just scrap it and say, hey, you know what? Instead of switching, we're playing exclusively zone. That you can't do that. You gotta hit these guys with as much continuity as possible. So what will Joe Mazzulla do? What will he do as head coach? I'll talk about that when I come back. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making Locked On NBA your second listen? I host on Wednesdays. We've got rotating hosts all week long. Wednesdays belong to me and Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans. We've been doing that. We've been doing that day longer than anybody's been doing any day on Locked On NBA. We're the OGs of that show, so make sure you're subscribed. It's a fun look at the league. It's going to be a great look at all the big stories from around the NBA. Check out Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcast, wherever you found this show, you'll find that one, including YouTube. To wrap up with a look at Joe Mazzulla, and I think we at Media Day we were searching for sort of answers to. So, what's your style? What kind of what can we expect from you? What's your thing going to be? You know, we knew that Ime coming in was going to be about defense and discipline, and you know when you bring in a Mike D'Antoni, let's say, you know you're getting fast-paced offense. There's personalities to these coaches, and they're known for things. And I'll say that Mazzulla made sure that he said, it's not about me. And it's not about carrying on, quote, it's not about carrying on from one person. It's about carrying on the identity of our players. We had struggles early last season, but at our best, we knew what our identity was. And so he says, as much as we can stick to things we were great at last year, and then we can find areas to improve along the way, I think is the right way to go. So you have a history, doesn't matter who it was underneath, who was the head coach. What worked? That worked. What you did with Ime worked as far as defense, the style, the plan. Let's keep that stuff. Let's keep all the stuff that worked, and let's try to fix the few things that didn't. And let's try to fix some of the stuff that maybe didn't work quite as well. So he's not coming in with the attitude of, I'm a first-time head coach. This is my time to shine. Even if I don't get this job, I'm putting out into the NBA universe that my who I am. It's Joe time. You know, he's not like that. He probably, it felt like he was reading from the Brad Stevens playbook pretty directly. He's very much it's not about me. It's about the players. It's not about any one thing. It's about the collective. It's about recognizing what's right and then fixing what's wrong. And whatever that is, that's my job. I'll do it. And that's a very kind of enlightening type of approach. He's not tied to anything. I don't think he could be tied to anything. Like I said before, you can't come in and take a team that went to the finals, being thrust into the driver's seat there, and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to drive completely differently. What you did last year worked. We have almost all of the same players on the team. So why would it make any sense to change anything in any material way? So step one is, he recognizes that. He recognizes the stuff that needs to be done. And when it comes to fixing things, it is going to be leaning on the guys. And Jaylen Brown said it flat out. This is going to be a big test of our leadership. And I think this is where we find out what this team really, truly is. And we're really going to find out how much of last year was really about Ime pushing buttons and how much of it was these guys also finding something within themselves. Because now he's gone and Joe Mazzulla is in, and he seems like he's a very capable guy. Everybody trusts him. Everybody believes in him, but he's still a first-time NBA head coach, and he's still 34 years old. He's 2 years younger than Al Horford, his starting center. So that says a lot. And it's, I don't care who you are. Only the absolute brightest of the bright, phenoms of phenoms are fully formed at 34 years old. I mean, hell, I'm 49 and I'm not fully formed. I am still learning about myself. I'm learning about how to be better. And at 34, even though he has a little bit of a track record, he's had 2 years as a college head coach, a few years as an assistant. He's worked with these guys for a while. He's demonstrated a strong knowledge, but 34 years old is still 34 years old. And to me, that's still super young. And I can tell you for a fact that the guy I was at 34 and the guy that I am now, not the same, nowhere near the same. Life experience changes you and helps you grow and pushes you. It should anyway, pushes you to new levels, new heights, and you become better. You become smarter. You become, this is the concept of the black belt in karate. This is one of my favorite analogies to use, because the reason why black belts are black in karate is because in the original formation of the martial arts, the belts weren't washed. And so the belt became darker with more experience. The more people fought, the more people honed their skills and their crafts, the darker the belt got. That's the concept of belts increasing in color along the way. It's only the experience that shapes shapes people like this. And so this is going to be a very new experience that's going to get that belt a lot darker for Joe Mazzulla. It's super, super important that Jaylen and Jayson and Smart and Al, especially those four guys, because I see those four guys as the leaders on this team. It's extraordinarily important that they are completely on board. And even if they have a disagreement, that disagreement either gets worked out publicly. If they have the disagreement, it has to get worked out, or they support Joe publicly and then privately sit down and say, I actually disagree with this. I backed you because we need everybody to believe that you're the guy and we believe in you, but we disagree. And here's why. And that's a very professional way, I think, to deal with certain things with a person who's in charge that may need that extra support. So however they need to do it, the players and their leadership becomes supremely important. If the Celtics are going to get back to the finals, if the Celtics are going to fulfill the promise that made them the betting favorites coming into this season, they need to be as supportive as any player has ever been of a coach at any time. That's the bottom line. Now, I believe that Joe Mazzulla will come in and do a lot of similar things to last year because those things worked. I think he's a very smart guy, and you can tell that he's very, very bright and meticulous and thorough. And that is going to lead to, hey, I thought XYZ. I thought some of these things were less than ideal, or I wouldn't have approached this that way. So maybe there are going to be some spots where he interjects his own personality. It's really going to be interesting to see his dynamic with his assistant coaches. That is going to be something that I think will be a story to monitor, because all of those assistant coaches are Ime guys. The entire coaching staff is from Portland, Oregon. They just hired, I forget who it was. I don't have it in front of me. They just hired another assistant coach, and he's from Portland. So Ime filled his staff with his guys, the guys that he feels comfortable with. And Joe has developed, a relationship with all of those guys too. They're all very good basketball people. They're all very good basketball minds, but they're all very clearly and strongly Ime guys. And I'm sure professionalism will reign, but you don't know necessarily if it will stick. And I just don't know. I just don't know how that relationship is going to go. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And I'm curious to see what a guy like Damon Stoudemire does, because Damon Stoudemire was a head coach in college. He was doing well. And then Ime calls him up. And he's like, yeah, man, I'll ride with you. No problem. And now Ime's gone. And now Stoudemire's like, wait a second. I just had a head coaching job, and I, gave that up to be with my guy. Now my guy's gone, and however he feels about stuff, I'm definitely not going to figure out how he feels about that situation, but his guy is gone, and they elevate somebody else to be the head coach, some 34-year-old kid to be the head coach. How does that impact those guys? So that's a little element to watch too. That's why the players have to be so supportive. If they see anything with an assistant coach who might be, chirping, maybe one of the coaches is chirping about things, during a shoot around or during a warm up or during some side shooting, the players got to be, supportive of their current head coach. They got to be supportive of Mazzulla and say, hey man, yeah, I get it. I don't know what happened either, but it is what it is, and he's got to pay the price, and we got to move forward. We all want the rings. You're here. Let's try and get this ring together. So I think I come out of media day optimistic about everything, but certainly, there's trepidation. There's certainly some level of, okay, I'm optimistic. I recognize that I generally skew optimistic no matter what. But also there are definite pitfalls here. There are definite opportunities for things to go sideways for the Celtics, but they know what it takes, and they have an opportunity. It's still the same players. I've said this a couple times now on the podcast, still mostly the same guys, still mostly the same team that went to the finals. So there's no reason, even though the coach is gone and there's a new guy there's no reason for this team not to at least challenge for a return. There's no reason. They can still do it. So it depends on them. All right, practice again on Tuesday. So all week I'll be talking about, I'll be there. I'll be talking to the players. I'll get a sense. What I'm very excited for is we're back on the floor. We're back down there. We're not being held at bay. We can get down there. We can see guys talking. It's one of my favorite things to do, to be on the floor and to be in the locker room. You can see dynamics as they're building, and you can see who's shooting with whom, who's talking to whom. You can see faces. You can see body language. You can see everything. And each practice, you start to piece together. Okay, this is a constant. This is not a constant. Okay, I got to watch out for that thing. These guys never talk. These guys always talk. You know, why is this dynamic developing? And over the course of a season, you start to figure out, okay, this could be a little click here. This could be a little click there. If such things arise, right? And being there allows me to kind of get a real sense of how this stuff is working. So I'm excited for that. So obviously, once I figure things out, I will relay that to you because that's part of my job and I love doing it. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch the show on YouTube. Do all the stuff you're supposed to do on YouTube, which is hit that bell, hit the thumbs up, make a comment. Just tell me you like my shirt, Tower Records, the old Tower Records shirt. Anything in the comments helps, because comments help fuel the algorithm on Twitter, on Twitter too, but on YouTube. We got to play that algorithm game. That's it. I'm not going to ask you guys for money, but feeding the algorithm helps me because that gets the views up, and that's how I make my money. So appreciate that. And also I appreciate you sharing the podcast, telling your friends, family, everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.